Some of my clients are aware that I had a mold exposure about a month ago due to some interesting business practices of the person who owned the space before me. We are now mold free, fortunately, and I'm very excited about that because I'm highly sensitive to mold. My body does not like mold at all. Like, doesn't even like cheddar cheese, doesn't like mold. So, I wanted to talk about how I handled the mold exposure that I had and what I did to help recover because it was to the point where I was removing faucets in here because the faucets had gotten moldy, and I was seeing little puffs of mold spores getting thrown in my face as I was working. And when your body really doesn't like something, having it puff in your face is not a great solution. So I had it took me down. So I wanted to share, like I said, a couple of things that helped me function. Now, one of the things that's special about my mold exposures is I also have Lyme disease and a couple of the co-infections with that, one of which is Babesia. And generally, when I have a mold exposure, my next step is my body goes, okay, let's have a Babesia flare. So one of the products I've been using is actually a Babesia medication that I get at community pharmacy. Thank you, Teresa Davis. So I want to give her a shout out. There's two other people I want to give shout outs to. The first one is Angela over at Restoration Wellness and her lymphatic drainage massage, because that helps me to just clear some of this out because mold makes me puffy. And so it helps get rid of some of that fluid. And then I also want to give a shout out to Gwyneth Bradshaw over at Restoration Wellness as well, who has been teaching me about intuitive eating and listening to my body so that I could make the dietary refinements I needed to make while I had this exposure so that I could listen to my body and heal more quickly. Now, granted, healing quickly for me took about a month because this was a really bad exposure. So they were still recovering. So the one of the first things I did, of course, was acupuncture. I am an acupuncturist. It's what I do. So we pulled out the needles. We did all that. I also pulled out my self-care kits. I was using my jade roller to help open up my neck and get some of the drainage that was just stuck in my throat and my tonsils. I was using the pillow in that self-care kit and heating it up and putting it against my eustachian tube, which is that tube that goes from the back of your eardrum into your throat so it can drain and balance pressure to help open that up. I was using cupping. You might actually still be able to see some of my cupping marks. They may have faded. I was doing everything I could think of to practically, through a practice, practically, get rid of what I was dealing with. I also pulled out my herbs, of course, and my herbal supplements to help my body heal and help it do what it needed to do. One of my favorites I actually don't have to show you because I've been using so much of it. It's called Universal Benefit. It was originally designed to treat mumps, and mumps is when our sublingual glands, salivary glands, get super swollen. And so this formula helps to deal with any swelling right in here. Toxic heat is what we call it. So inflamed, swollen. Now, of course, this is something where you should always go to a licensed herbalist who knows what they're doing so that they can make recommendations for you in your case. I'm talking specifically about my case and some of the products that I used. So please don't just go, oh, my throat's sore, let me go get Universal Benefit. It may help. It might make it worse depending on what's going on. So Universal Benefit, it was one of the products that I used. I also ended up using Snake and the Dragon, which helped to clear out some of the sinus crud. Speaking of sinus crud, one of my favorite single herbs, I know that's backwards, I apologize. One of my favorite single herbs for sinus crap, because this gets rid of mucus anywhere, anytime, and I love it, is platycodon. If anyone is having sinus crud right now, which I think most of us are because the pollen counts are absolutely ridiculous, platycodon is often a good option. Now, once again, We always want to make sure that we're getting the best option for you. So seeing a licensed practitioner who can give you good advice is always important. I also used our Evil Bone Water. Most of my clients love our Evil Bone Water. It is a pain liniment. So it's the developers of it use water and ethyl alcohol to pull the active ingredients out of 10 different herbs, combine it into this lovely bottle. I love it for pain. I was in so much pain just with my ears being clogged that I actually took painkillers. Now, for most of you who don't know me, I don't take painkillers. While I acknowledge that it is not a badge of honor to be in pain, I prefer to avoid painkillers whenever possible because I like to do it in a more natural way. I like to do it through acupuncture, through cupping, through other modalities that I use. But we don't resent someone for using a crutch when they've broken their leg. Why would we resent someone for using a medication when they need it? And y'all, I needed an anti-inflammatory. So I went and I took some Tylenol. And to a lot of people, that sounds like, well, of course you did. But to me, that was a big deal, to be in a level of pain where I needed a medication. But I took my anti-inflammatories, and y'all, medications are amazing. Whether that's a supplement, a pharmaceutical, whatever it is that your body needs at that time is what you should be doing for your body. So for some of you, that means painkillers. In moderation, please don't use a physical remedy to deal with an emotional problem. That's how we get into painkiller addictions. But that's a whole nother discussion for another time. So, Evil Bone Water and Tylenol to help deal with my pain management needs. And then to go directly after the mold, I can set that down on my table here. We went for my HMET binder. So HMET stands for heavy metals and environmental toxins. Mold spores in your face is absolutely a environmental toxin. And so this, I love this stuff. I'm about to be TMI and gross. Well, if you're my client, you're probably used to this by now. We don't really believe in TMI here because we want accurate information. The first time I used the heavy metal environmental toxin binder, the second morning after I started taking it, my bowel movement smelled like mold because it was pulling so much crud out of my system from various mold exposures I'd had. So when I saw those little puffs of spores heading to my face, I knew I needed my heavy metal environmental toxin binder. So those are some of the products that I used. Most of the products that I used to help me get well, to help me get rid of all this crud that I've been dealing with for the last month. My next step is actually to go get some Heavenly Heart to help me sleep better and help my body restore now that we've dealt with most of the crud and gotten that out. So if you have any further questions or I can help with anything, or you have a question that would be great for another topic for me to discuss here live, please feel free to drop it below. If not, y'all have a wonderful evening, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.